Good morning, everyone. My name is Glenn Andruschuk. I'm a Staff Sergeant in the Domestic Conflict Unit. Thank you all for being here today, although I wish you weren't. I wish we didn't have to dedicate a month to preventing family violence, but unfortunately, that's the reality we're living in. What's also unfortunate is that we've seen an increase in the number of domestic violence calls in Calgary this year. In 2025, we are on pace to exceed the 5-year average for the number of incidents of domestic violence. We are also seeing an increase in the number of male victims. It has gone up each of the last 2 years and is also on pace to exceed the 5-year average. However, it should be noted that females still make up 80% of the victims in our city. Anecdotally, we're also seeing more incidents of domestic violence happening at the end of a relationship or in the aftermath of a breakup. Exiting an abusive relationship can be incredibly difficult, and as the statistics show, it can also be incredibly dangerous. Today, we are encouraging victims of domestic violence to reach out if they need help. We are reaching out to those who may be trapped in an abusive relationship and don't know how to escape. And we want them to know there is a way out, and there is life after escaping a violent relationship. Now I'd like to introduce Candace to come up and tell her story.
Hi, my name's Candace. I'm asking our community to come together to shine a light on family violence. Let's stand united for those who are still trapped in the shadows of this painful cycle. Let's be the light at the end of their tunnel. Let's be the hope. To anyone experiencing family violence, please reach out. You are not alone. 15 years ago, I was in an abusive relationship, emotionally, psychologically, physically. When I decided to leave, my fiance, he threatened me, then attacked me, even trying to strangle me. I went to the police station with my friends, still hesitant to ask for help, let alone press charges. The police officer asked me if he had put his hands on me. I said no. My friend yelling my name, Candace, tell the truth. I said, he strangled me. The police officer said something that sticks to me to this day. He asked me if I knew the 3 phases of physical abuse. I said no. He said, 1, they hit. 2, they strangle. 3, we're taking you out of your home in a body bag. I still went home that night, but it was the next morning when I was in trouble for getting out of bed before I was allowed to. I told myself, I'm not listening to that voice anymore. I proceeded to my parents' house, called my friends to meet me there, and asked them to take me to the police station. I'll never forget the compassion and care given when I had to give my statement. To this day, I thank that police officer for being so blunt but kind, and because of that, I'm here today. They helped me find the strength to press charges when I didn't know I had any strength left. Years later, when I shared my story, it was police officers, those in uniform, who risked their lives every day, who told me I was brave. At the time, I didn't understand how they could say that to me, but I do know now. To anyone who feels trapped in an abusive relationship, I've been where you are, questioning what's happening, afraid to leave, unsure how to rebuild. I know the fear of walking away from the only home you've known, even when it no longer feels safe. But every home should be a place of peace. Every home should be home sweet home. Because bravery is choosing yourself, it's choosing safety, it's choosing to break the cycle. And to the person who is out there just like myself, just like many of us, know this, you're brave too. And I'd just like to say too that thank you to the Calgary Police for what they did. Fear is not love, all the counseling that I received, and Homefront who helped me through my court case. So thank you, and again, you're not alone, and the community's here for you. Thank you.
If anyone has questions for either Candace or Glenn, we also have our representative from Homefront here to talk, so we'll just have that recording now.
Can we just start maybe with Candace, because you're there?
Yeah.
And then we'll move over. Candace, the question I have to ask you is, what gave you the courage to do this today? This takes a lot of courage. So what gave you that courage to come here today and talk to us about this?
Yeah, thank you. It never gets past me that, someone might be listening and it might help them get out of that situation where you feel so stuck and essentially could save a life. So I know what it felt like. It feels like you're under quicksand. And it takes, friends, family, just to really reach out. But it never phases me that maybe someone's listening and maybe they'll know they can make that call. There's so many resources out there. Looking back, it was the scariest time for me. And like I said, I had been attacked and I still wasn't ready to leave. Like, it took me a week to go to that police station, but I finally reached out. And, but I know by sharing the story that it's just giving the awareness and just letting others know that you're not alone and you will get through it.
I gotta say, to know that this happened 15 years ago, and you can almost feel your trauma today. How has that affected, so over 50 years, how has this affected your life going forward?
That's a great question. I was diagnosed with PTSD afterwards, and just a month before this happened, we had a tragedy in our family. So two events. I had to go through a lot of counseling, crisis counseling with the women's shelter. Now it's Fear is Not Love, and just a lot of it's been a journey, and just a lot of healing. And then over the years, I've kind of switched, and I'm now giving back. I've actually just become a board member at Homefront, so very full circle in my life. And with work, we give back to Homefront and to other organizations in the community. So I've been able to take some dark times in my life and turn it into some kind of like really bright opportunities. But for me, it's just to give back to the community. And thanks for recognizing that, because there's some things that still stick to me this day that pop up unexpectedly. So, yeah.
And going forward, what would you better hope our community and society could do to help other women in this position?
I think just being able to talk about it more. It's still just so silent. I think we just need to just really open up and talk about this, and, just from the young age, just teach others like healthy relationships, and just to come together and just for people to know the resources are out there. When I was in my abusive relationship, the whole time, I didn't realize I was, but looking back, it was very abusive. And I still remember the day after I pressed charges, it was with Fear is Not Love, where I had to ask them, like after my body's been bruised, I was essentially held captive for 9 months in my home. I asked them, was this an abusive relationship? I had to ask that. And she said no, she said yes. And in that moment, I gasped and I just lost it. But to look back, it was very abusive, but I was in it and I didn't realize it. So.
I do have one more question.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
How important was the police service and those officers showing up and doing what they did to you?
Yeah, it was so very important. So I had gone for lunch. I was very isolated. I was not allowed to see my friends. And so we'd gone for lunch, and I just thought, this is my chance. Like, I had not seen my friends in months. And I showed them the bruising on my body. And from there, we're taking you to the police station. And so we went to the police station. And that's when the police officer had asked, has he put his hands? And then I was still trying to protect, and no. And they didn't scare, they were so compassionate, and I could tell that they were there to help me. And just for what they said, they let me know what kind of danger I was in, but still I needed, so, but just that really resonated. And again, I went home that night, and then the next morning I was like, I can't listen to this voice anymore. Every minute of my life was tracked. And so they were just amazing. I had to go back I had to go give a video statement. So I was in there for an hour. So they could not arrest my ex at the time until I had signed off pressing the charges. And by that time, I'd already been unaccounted for an hour. He's already at my parents' house. And so he was considered dangerous. It was top call for Hawks that day. The police were calling my parents, making sure that they could communicate, but while my ex was at the door. So they kept everyone safe. They went to a few of my family members' homes to make sure that they were safe. So, and then even just coming back here with the domestic violence unit, I had to have an interview with them, and just the care. And I'll never forget, too, when I had to do that video statement, because I had to watch it later when I had to prepare for my trial. I had to watch it with the Crown prosecution, and just the care, was just And so to this day, if I see a police officer, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. If they're on the street, I stop and tell them thank you. It's because of you I'm here. And so it means the world to me that I can give back now and just give those other chances. So
Sorry for having to make you relive that.
that's okay. That's why I'm here today. And, you know, if I'm reliving it today, like it's nowhere near what someone's going through trying to get out of it today. So, yeah, I'll just go buy myself a treat later.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
so
oh, one more question, sorry.
Bill, did you want Candace or you?
Candace or Staff Sgt?
Sergeant,
Okay.
Okay, okay.
Sergeant, you've said that we're on pace for really bad year, especially when, you know, regarding 5-year averages. Do you have any numbers?
Yeah,
Bill, the release bill at 9 should have those
Those numbers are.
Let me know.
Okay, thanks. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we're at that?
well, a big part of the spike, we believe, is the growth in Calgary. And we are below the population growth with our numbers. So I just had our analyst check that this morning. And if we're up by about, I don't have the exact number, she couldn't get it, or we didn't get it, but we're up by 6% in population and we're up by 3% in calls. So it makes sense.
I've heard from some survivors that the use of peace bonds is a real concern for them, and that it's not holding a lot of these perpetrators properly accountable, and they don't feel safe because of it. What can you tell me about that?
I don't want to get too much into the justice system and the way that it works, but I know that there's a lot of pressure on victims to come to trial and to testify against their accused. And so that is one of the ways that the justice system looks at a way to support victims, hold the offender accountable, and have conditions in place.
The release talks about a lot more incidents happening once a breakup has happened. What can you say to people who are worried about escaping an abusive relationship and then still having something happen afterward?
I think it's having a good safety plan is the key when you're going to leave a relationship. Let your friends and family know that you are that you're going to leave. Have a phone that you can call 911. Have an escape plan from your house, things like that. Go stay with relatives or friends to try and protect yourself from that perpetrator for coming back and harming you.
And why do you think it is that that might be happening? Is social media kind of a part of it, that you're still visible to the other person, or not to blame anybody, obviously, but...
No, I think that when you look at the root cause of domestic violence, it's power and control. And so when the breakup ends up occurring and the offender realizes that they've lost power and control, they want that power and control back. And they'll do whatever they can. And if they realize that they're not going to get it back, that's when they escalate their behavior.
How long can that kind of dangerous period last?
It can last for a long time, unfortunately. Sometimes with help and counseling, some of the perpetrators get over it quicker than other times, but it can last 4 years, unfortunately.
And what would you attribute the increase in male victims to? Is that just people feeling more comfortable coming forward, or is that, again, the population increase? And are those victims at the hands of females or also at the hands of males?
They're at both. And we don't have an exact reason or report behind why there's more male victims, but if you look at the numbers, it's around 20% that go through our courtroom 508 and Homefront work with year to year, and it's been like that for the last few years. So it's kind of going up with our numbers, our calls for service as well.
Did you want to talk about the stigma also sort of being less
Yeah.
strong for men to report?
So I think domestic violence on a whole is we're trying to get people to come forward and speak up. And the more we talk about it in the community, the less we're hoping we have, the less victims. People know there's resources and ways out. And I think with the men on a whole don't want to come forward and say they're a victim of domestic violence. And so we're trying to change that perception to say it's okay to come forward, whether you're a man or woman, and we're here to help you.
Is there a profile of a domestic abuser?
Not really. Like, maybe could you expand? I think they come in all shapes and forms and sizes, domestic abusers. Unfortunately, a big role in domestic violence is addictions, mental health, and childhood trauma. There's a lot of other factors as well, but those would be big three.
What about this increase? How does that affect then the officers who have to serve? So you're seeing a bit of an increase in domestic. How does that affect our street officers?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge for our officers. If in 2024, our patrol officers submitted about 96,000 reports, and 24,000 of them were domestics. So about 1 in every 4 calls that they go to is a domestic that they submit a report on. With that being said, not every call that they go to gets a report.
Is there a sense of frustration over this? I mean, these numbers that, I mean, we've got a lot of programs in place, we have a lot of measures, we have a lot of awareness, and we still see this.
I think there's frustration from the community as a whole. The community has put a lot of time and effort into preventing domestic violence, and unfortunately, it just continues to go on, and it's a cycle of abuse that you start to see with that childhood trauma that I spoke about. Unfortunately, the drugs are stronger in Calgary, more addictive, causing more mental health. So yes, there is a frustration that as a community and with our partners, we can't do more to prevent it.
The stats that you gave is there is a rising number of new Canadians. That is a big chunk of the stats. And also in the Supreme Police system, they use restorative justice. Does Calgary Police Service have any plans to use the same module to work with new Canadians or people at large here through CPS on restorative justice?
I can't speak to that because it's not my unit. We do have a specific unit that's working with restorative justice. But with the new Canadians, there is a high number of domestics that we attend, and we work with our partners at Calgary Immigrant Women's Association to help provide supports. We're out in the community with our mobilizers doing education to the new Canadians, trying to hope that we can curb that violence in those communities.
Candace mentioned a few of the red flags that she didn't even notice until after she had left the relationship. Can you name some red flags that somebody watching this might be able to see in their partner, in their relationship?
I think one of the biggest red flags at the start is when you start to become isolated, like Candace mentioned. All of a sudden, your partner won't want you to be with your family, and then it's your friends, and then it's your coworkers, until you're isolated away from everyone. Anger issues and controlling behavior, checking emails, cell phone texts, wanting to always know where you are. Those are the major red flags.
Do you on track to exceed the 5-year average? Is anything being done about this? Is there more advocacy work maybe going to the province about this? Is there, or is it just, here's the numbers?
So we're always looking to try and prevent domestic violence. When we report to our chief, we're speaking about what we're doing to prevent domestic violence, which in our unit alone, we have the domestic conflict response team, and they're partnered with 4 community agencies. Our elder abuse unit is partnered with agencies, and our community agencies are always lobbying the province for the ability to work more with us. So we are trying to prevent it and keep it down. The 5-year average, the numbers are up, but also in 2020 and 2021, after coming out of COVID, our numbers were significantly down. And we thought that they would go up after the pandemic, but they actually went down for a year or two. So the number is higher than it should be, but those years skew it a little bit.
Do you work with other jurisdictions? Like, I'm just thinking Edmonton police. Like, do you kind of contrast and compare? Do you track the data in the same way?
Yeah, in Calgary, we track familial violence or conflict in the home. So we're tracking brothers, fighting brothers. Most other agencies across the country only track intimate partner violence. So it's hard to sort of compare numbers, but for your original answer, do we work together? Yes. We're part of a family violence police advisory committee that meets once a month, which is all the police agencies across Alberta. Ministries and the GOA are also at that table, and we discuss trends we're seeing, unfortunately, the homicides that are happening, and what could have been done to prevent them, or what we can do in the future to prevent future ones.
And just the last one, I apologize. In those meetings, in those conversations, is there a conversation about looking to track things in the same way? Just so, you know, maybe Edmonton, Calgary Police, the other jurisdictions as well, can maybe go to the province and say, this is the data with similar, like, points, and we're tracking it similarly. Is there any conversation about maybe increasing that?
So all that data is tracked in the same fashion to Stats Canada. And so we, across Canada, are all under the same guidelines of what we have to report to them. And we do use those stats when we go to the province. I think maybe I just say one more thing. I think when you look at different avenues for preventing domestic violence, one of the key things that we're looking at here in Calgary is Fear is Not Love has started Men And, which is a support for men. It's for them to reach out if they're feeling angry, if they're feeling, mentally drained. There's resources across the board. If they're victims, they can reach out and get support in the same way. So what we're trying to do is, and what they're trying to do is look at providing those supports to men prior to violence happening in the home. So if men can recognize that they need help or they need a break, they're tired and frustrated or lost their job and they need help, then that support is there so that hopefully that intervention can happen prior to violence in the home.
Would you like to speak to Maggie from Homefront?
Yeah.
Canada, might go up there. Thanks.
Thanks. First question is your first name and last name, if you could say and spell both for us, please.
Bet Maggie McKillop, Maggie, MAC, capital KILLOP, and I'm the Executive Director of Homefront.
When you hear about an increase like this, how does that make you feel, and why do you think it is?
Again, as Glenn indicated, it's part population, it's part economy, and people struggling to meet their basic needs. You have people that have challenges sometime with their coping mechanisms, throw mental health and addictions into that, and it's not a recipe for moving forward in the most healthy way. I think having people learn about healthy relationships, reaching out before violence occurs, really increasing the awareness around the indicators of domestic violence and what that looks like. Because often, as Candace said, you don't know you're in it until somebody shows you or teaches you that there are certain indications of a relationship that aren't healthy. Homefront deals with 100% of all charged domestic violence files. So we are the what's next after a 911 call, supporting those individuals from that inception of the charge through to the end of an offender's probation order. And it's a critical time to give them that education and awareness and support and hope for something that is better than what they're currently facing.
Are you seeing any changes in the severity of these situations?
Yes, well, certainly COVID, as Glenn said, all the numbers went down, but what we were seeing on our end was families were waiting longer periods of time before they reached out. So therefore, the violence when it was occurring was more severe. And I think that abusers at that point in time were using COVID as a means to control their partners or terrify them. And even now we're seeing lots of incidences of suffocation, strangulation. There's a lot of people struggling in this community.
What is the cost to society of this dysfunction?
Well, it's a significant cost across ministries. So a cost to health, a cost to justice, a cost to children's services. You know, domestic violence is something that falls on a continuum. And you have your primary prevention, which is critical to education and awareness. So, you know, people that have had childhood traumas can address them and work through that and end the cycle for their own family. You know, right up to, you know, early intervention and intervention in crisis, which are equally as critical. Because what we're seeing on the crisis end is an indication of what's happening on the front end as well.
Thank you.
What would you say to somebody who feels like their whole life is wrapped up in this partner and that there's nothing for them when they leave?
That's precisely how it's done. That abuser will slowly pick away at their self-esteem, their self-worth. They will isolate them, they will control them, and they will convince that individual that they are worth nothing unless they are with that person. And that's part of the challenge, is to provide that hope, to provide empowerment, to say that domestic violence is not about love. It is the furthest thing from being about love, because that's not how you treat people who you love. It is about power and control, and it is about giving those individuals a hope that they need and walking with them in that journey to give them that small step of life can be different. Your kids can live healthier lives. It's not a quick journey. Most of them didn't get there overnight, and the journey to health is not an overnight journey as well. But it can happen, and there are community resources out there, and there is help available. So we just ask that people reach out.
And there is positivity afterwards for these people too. I guess that's what they need to know and see, even though there's a lot of challenges, right? So
Challenges, but look at Candace. She is a champion, she is courageous, and she is setting the example that there is life and health and prosperity after a domestic violence situation.
There's a couple instances just in recent memory of women in Calgary who were murdered by former intimate partner, and you know, we don't know all the details, of course, but in some instances restraining orders were filed. Like, they seemed like they had done everything within the legal system to protect themselves, and obviously it wasn't enough. So my question for you, from the work that you do, if you wave a magic wand and have some sort of solution or some sort of protection or just bolstered support in a certain area to prevent people who are going through the process from still ending up murdered, what does that look like for you? What do you guys need to make sure that, you know, women and men are safe?
Well, certainly, first of all, the responsibility lies with the offender. Nobody else but the offender. There is no victim blaming. There is nothing that constitutes somebody harming another individual under any circumstance. And with the increase, you know, with a lot of nonprofit agencies, it's capacity. It's having staff that put their heart and soul into everyone they work with, but the volume is very, very challenging and difficult. And, you know, what you might be otherwise years ago could spend, you know, a good hour with somebody, that's fleeting. So resources and the community coming together and cross-ministry discussions for the accountability so that we can talk, we can share information, and we can support. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without our police partners, without our community agency partners, children's services and probation. It is the collective coming together that helps us save families and individuals.
Your demand is more than your supplies, as we understand. How do you cope up that with? And also, what do you do with the people with language barriers?
So, great question. Yes, the demand is incredible. I have incredibly passionate, dedicated staff. We try and balance mental health and well-being. That's a priority for us and any line of work that hits with domestic violence. Yes, we do have the language bank, and we have interpreters that we work with. when we are doing our intakes or our risk assessments with people that don't have English as their first language. And we are trying to meet their basic needs. First and foremost, how do you think about anything else if your basic needs aren't being met? So it is something as simple as putting groceries on their table or helping with childcare or, helping that individual understand that there is life beyond their situation.
Is there any way people can get help or help your company as well? Are you guys a nonprofit?
Yes, Homefront is a nonprofit agency, and certainly donations are always welcome because every dollar goes to the critical work of helping families. As Glenn said, we not only work with intimate partner violence, but we also work with familial violence. And every dollar counts and is important. And again, it is about the ability to never turn somebody away. Homefront doesn't have waiting lists. We receive 100% of all charged domestic violence files, and we stay with those individuals through the end of that order.
Do the stresses of the holidays make it a busier time of year?
That's always a question that's asked, and in my opinion, I think families do their absolute utter best to hold it together through the actual holiday. Then I think you see an increase because, the holiday's done, the coping mechanisms are still there, mental health, addictions, and there are certain times within the year where we do have some increased files coming in, and I'm not sure those exact months, but I know. I think families often try and do the best they absolutely can during the holidays. Some do better than others.
I can tell you, I just did a PowerPoint.
Please step up. Sorry.
I'm doing a presentation with Homefront in November, and I did a 5-year graph of our calls, and every year the spike was actually in July and August. So more than you'd think. It does go down in December, and then it does spike in the end of January and start of February again. But the biggest rise in calls for service was in the summer months.
Is there any reason behind that? Is it alcohol or?
To tell you the truth, I'm not, if people are at home, I guess, would be my suspicion. But that was the first time just last week that I saw that was a consistent spike over a 5-year period.
That's cool. Awesome, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.